How your eyes automatically activate your immune system. New science discovery. Imagine this. You're packed into a bustling train, and suddenly someone nearby sneezes, their eyes glistening with tears, and their nose a bright shade of red. Instinctively, you take a step back. While this reaction might seem like a simple case of social conditioning or learned behavior, recent research suggests that there's much more happening beneath the surface. A groundbreaking study published in Nature Neuroscience reveals that our responses to visible signs of illness may not just be behavioral, they could also activate our immune systems. Researchers from Switzerland and Italy have uncovered that merely observing someone who appears contagious can trigger the brain's threat detection systems, leading to the mobilization of immune cells. Astonishingly, no actual pathogen is required to initiate this response. Just a visual cue is enough. To explore this phenomenon, the team employed virtual reality VR technology, creating digital avatars that exhibited signs of sickness and monitored how participants' bodies reacted. This research is not only intriguing, but also surprisingly straightforward, prompting one to wonder why it hadn't been conducted sooner. In a series of VR experiments involving 248 healthy participants, individuals watched as digital avatars approached them. Some avatars displayed neutral expressions, while others appeared fearful or exhibited clear signs of illness, such as rashes or coughing. The results were telling. Participants reacted more quickly to gentle facial touches when a sick avatar was present, even from a distance. This indicates that their brains were already on high alert, subtly expanding their awareness of the space around them in response to perceived infection threats. Brain imaging studies revealed that two critical systems were activated. The peripersonal space network, which keeps track of the area immediately surrounding the body, and the salience network, responsible for identifying important or threatening information. What astonished scientists was not just the activation of these brain regions, but also the changes observed in the participants' blood. Individuals exposed to avatars that looked infectious exhibited heightened activity in innate lymphoid cells, immune cells that function as the body's first responders, alerting other immune defenses. Remarkably, this immune response mirrored what researchers typically observe in individuals who have received a flu vaccine. The key takeaway here is profound. The mere sight of illness can trigger a biological response akin to that of an actual infection. This suggests that our brains and immune systems are interconnected through a shared alarm system, one that tends to err on the side of caution, even when the threat is merely a simulation. The researchers traced this fascinating pathway using advanced brain imaging techniques, discovering that visual threat detection communicates with immune cells via the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal HPA axis, which is the body's primary stress response network. This connection appears to serve as a shortcut for priming the immune system before any real infection occurs. Utilizing machine learning, the researchers identified a complex interplay involving stress hormones, inflammatory molecules, and various chemical messengers that must maintain a delicate balance. They found that immune activation was most pronounced when stress hormones were elevated, inflammatory factors were low, and specific signaling molecules were in equilibrium. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes perfect sense. Our ancestors who could detect potential sources of infection from afar and prepare their bodies accordingly would have had a significant survival advantage. However, despite the excitement surrounding these findings, it's essential to acknowledge the study's limitations. The research did not establish that this visual immune priming reduces the likelihood of falling ill. It also did not demonstrate any long-term changes in immunity or enhancements in actual infection-fighting capabilities. The researchers focused solely on two types of immune cells in healthy young adults immediately after exposure, leaving us uncertain about the durability of this effect or whether it varies across different age groups, genders, or backgrounds. Moreover, we cannot entirely disentangle the sickness cue from feelings of disgust. A face marred by lesions might evoke visceral reactions that overlap with fear or revulsion, potentially contributing to the immune system's priming. The findings are exploratory and represent a pioneering effort that requires replication across diverse populations and pathogens. Nonetheless, the implications of this study are captivating. It could pave the way for practical applications, such as enhancing vaccine effectiveness through visual stimuli or gaining a deeper understanding of how stress impacts our ability to combat infections. The researchers speculate that, in the future, something as straightforward as exposure to virtual reality could enhance the efficacy of medications. Although this remains more in the realm of science fiction than established science, most intriguingly, this research prompts us to consider a different kind of question, one that biology and medicine often overlook. How much of our health is influenced not just by what enters our bodies, but also by what we observe and anticipate in our surroundings? Anirban Mahapatra, a scientist and author, recently published the popular science book, When the Drugs Don't Work: The Hidden Pandemic That Could End Medicine. The opinions expressed here are his own. How seeing a sick person can activate your immune system. Your body may be preparing for battle before you even know it, just by looking at someone who appears ill. That's right. Simply catching sight of a sick person can immediately trigger your brain and immune system into a heightened state of alertness, even when the potential risk of infection is extremely low. But here's where it gets controversial. Can our brains really tell the difference between a genuine threat and a mere visual cue? In a fascinating series of experiments, researchers armed participants with virtual reality headsets and placed them in lifelike scenarios. Some avatars in these digital environments displayed obvious signs of illness, think splotchy, feverish rashes or lethargic movement, while others appeared completely healthy. The distance between the participant and the virtual sick person also varied, all in the name of science. The results? Whenever participants saw an avatar displaying visible illness, even at distances much too far for infection to be realistic, their brains reacted sharply. Certain brain areas lit up on scans, and more surprisingly, their immune systems also showed a telltale rise in specific biological markers. This was especially true for cells known as innate lymphoid cells, ILCs, which typically surge in response to an actual germ invading your body. In this scenario, though, the immune response was sparked by nothing more than the simulated appearance of disease. And this is something most people miss. When the avatars looked healthy and neutral, none of those alarm bells went off. Participants' brains stayed calm, and their blood showed no jump in immune activity, reinforcing the idea that our brains are highly attuned to even visual hints of illness in others, perhaps as an evolutionary defense mechanism. The research team, including immunologist Sarah Travanelli from the University of Lausanne, put it succinctly: their data suggests that ILCs react not only to actual infections in the body, but also to the perception of infection approaching. This integration between the brain's detection of possible danger and the immune system's readiness could make for a more effective, proactive defense. It gets even more interesting. Machine learning methods helped analyze the results and confirmed that the heightened immune activity closely matched the distinct neural patterns triggered by viewing sick avatars. Not only that, but the most distant, visibly sick avatars actually prompted the strongest reactions. Why might that be? Could it be our brains are wired to recognize threats at the earliest possible moment, before they get close enough to infect us? Even more curiously, the brain areas lighting up in response to these sick avatars overlap with those that become active after receiving a flu vaccine. This suggests a common pathway for the brain to kickstart a protective response, whether the threat is a real microbe or merely a perceived one. Here's another insight. In one experiment involving 248 healthy adults, participants wore virtual reality sets and were asked to press a button as soon as they felt a gentle touch on the face. They consistently responded fastest when viewing a sick avatar, faster even than when viewing a fearful or neutral face. The implication? The sign of sickness primes the body and mind, a kind of internal brace for impact that may help us react more quickly to danger. But how much of this is about the biology of disgust, fear, or other emotions? The study authors admit there's more to unravel here, especially how our feelings about contagion and cleanliness factor in. It's an open question that's sure to spark more debate among scientists and readers alike. So what do you think? Can the mere perception of illness really influence your immune system? Or is this just another mind-over-matter effect? Should we consider this evidence of a built-in early warning system? Or is it possible our brains sometimes overreact to harmless cues? Share your thoughts and your disagreements in the comments below. Credit goes to the researchers whose work was published in Nature Neuroscience, helping us appreciate just how vigilant our brains can be on our behalf, even when we don't realize it.